afternoon, everyone. My name is Theo Bennett. I'm a client strategist here at MoreVisibility. You probably know that had you watched our first video in this series. With me today is Joe Teixeira, our Manager of Web Intelligence here at MoreVisibility. And today we want to talk about Google Analytics, but a little more advanced for those of you that already have it and maybe aren't sure if you're getting everything out of it. So as a recap, Google Analytics is a great free program that lets you get great business intelligence for your particular website, how people are finding you, and what they do when they get there. And also very easy to install, very quick to get the data up and running, and a great, easy to use interface.
That's right. Don't forget the many different reports that Google Analytics offers: advanced segmentation, custom reporting, motion charts, funnel visualization, e-commerce, goals, navigation summaries, entrance summaries. It goes on and on and on. Map overlay. I can just go on and on and on.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Some of the things you mentioned are a little bit newer to Google Analytics, and for those of you that haven't been paying attention, notice them in the interface or don't go in as often as you maybe you once used to. There's a lot of enterprise level features that are now available in Google Analytics, again, a free program. So a question that I get all the time, Joe, is a client will come to us and they have their own Google Analytics installation, but they're really not sure if the data is accurate, they're not sure if they're getting the most out of the data, and they just don't know. So what are some things that you would look to see or you would want people to do to get the best data possible?
The first thing, Theo, that I would do is, and it's amazing how often, unfortunately, this happens, is I would check that the Google Analytics tracking code, the little bit of JavaScript that you put on every page, is on every page of the website. That's something that, unfortunately, gets misdone or not done properly a lot of times. That Google Analytics tracking code, that must go on every single page of your website without exception. That's the best possible way to make sure that you're at least collecting all the most data that you possibly can. Another thing that a lot of people do, that especially some of our clients who have asked this question to us, Theo, is that they have a lot of people in their organization, they set their company's website as their homepage. So they're hitting that up all the time, and that can really inflate the number of page views and visits all the time.
It's a good point. So you have visitors from within the company that are accessing your website, and maybe in some cases just looking at the homepage and leaving could inflate your bounce rate and other things.
Absolutely. So one thing that you can do to clean up your data is you can filter out your own internal traffic, and that comes in, that is our segue to talking about filters and regular expressions, which are basically the business rules that you can apply to your Google Analytics profiles. So as the example that we're talking about, if you want to filter out your own internal data, you can set up a filter that can do that. All you'll need to know is the IP addresses of the computers in your organization. You can also set up filters to do many different things. One thing off the top of my head that I can think of is if you have a lot of page names that are very long on your website, you can use a filter to search for that and replace it with something a little bit neater, a little bit cleaner, and shorter so that it makes more sense to you when you're looking at your account.
So for example, dynamic pages, dynamically driven pages, shopping cart pages, things like that, category equals 5, product equals 17.7,
right,
or whatever it might be, that's a clean version. You can actually make that look like something that you know what it is when you're in the analytics interface?
Absolutely, yeah. So a lot of times, a lot of people in the organization aren't going to know what product ID category equals 9784. They're not going to know what that page is.
Right.
So you can set up a filter in Google Analytics for that particular profile.
Maybe that's brown shoes? Or?
To rewrite it to something like brown shoes, black
Right.
shoes, so that every person that has access to that particular set of reports will be able to look at that those content pages and be able to understand, oh, okay, this is brown shoes, black shoes, and that's what that means. So that's one big use of filters. The other, of course, is to filter out your own internal traffic, but there are countless different things that you can do with filters. That could be its own video. That really could.
So, and this topic in general, what do I need to do to get the best data possible from my site and from Google Analytics? There's so many things that really you'd want to look at, and have we ever seen a client's or anyone else's analytics that they were getting the most out of it?
It's actually quite rare, Theo. A lot of accounts out there are not properly configured, and a lot of filters are not applied correctly.
So no.
So no is the answer to that. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? But a lot of goals aren't set up, a lot of filters aren't set up. cases where you can set up multiple profiles aren't being done. So there's a lot of things that each account out there in the whole Google Analytics global world, so there are some things that you can do to optimize that, probably in most cases, if not all cases.
Okay. So no.
So no.
Right. Great. So you mentioned goals.
Right.
That's a good segue, because
that's
one
point
of the
number
next
3.
topic is
Right.
goals and outcomes. And why don't you talk about this? Because a lot of times when I'm talking to a client, it's the first question I want to know. I want the answer to is, what do you want people to do on your website?
Right. So back in the 90s and early 90s and even towards the late 90s, getting hits or getting visits was all that you needed to do for success online. That's not the case anymore in 2009 and moving forward. Getting hits and visits just isn't enough anymore, Theo. You can bring a lot of people to your website, that's great, but the question then becomes, now what? Now what happens to these people? Do they just leave my site right away? Do they go on deeper into my site? Or do they actually accomplish an outcome or a goal on my website? And this can be anything that you deem important on your website. So if it is important for visitors to fill out your Contact Us form, for example, that can be a goal or an outcome that you can set up in Google Analytics. If it's downloading a PDF, if it's looking at a particular page that you just think it's important for your visitors to do, that can be an outcome. And then, of course, importantly for all you e-commerce merchants, buying something from your store could be considered a goal or an outcome.
Great. And e-commerce, since you mentioned it, we could probably talk about that for an hour, but e-commerce, that is something that we typically see that's not set up correctly. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a tricky part to the Google Analytics setup process. It does require some additional code on the receipt page or the confirmation thank you page of that shopping cart, and this does get improperly done a lot because it is a little bit tricky to do, and we do understand that. But that is definitely an area where some optimization could happen if that possibility did come about.
So if you've made the mistake of just cut and pasting the code from the Google Analytics help pages, you probably have sold a lot of t-shirts.
Yeah, you wouldn't be very happy with the e-commerce section of reports right now if that's
Right.
what you did. But it's not to worry because that's something that definitely can be fixed.
Right. So Google Analytics tracking code, or GATC customizations, why don't we talk about that?
Sure.
And, what does that mean? Because some people may understand that, but other people, just although they know the analytics and they know the interface, they may not know what's possible.
Right, so to get started with your Google Analytics account and just to track data right away, uploading the JavaScript onto every page of your website, just as the Google Analytics account gives it to you, is going to be fine. But there are a lot of things that you can do to customize that code to, basically manipulate the data that you get and to modify the way it looks in some cases. In other cases, you can exclude certain types of data. There's a lot of different possibilities that you can do with the Google Analytics tracking code.
Why don't you talk about some of the times that you want to do customizations, or you need to do?
Absolutely. So one thing that I can think of right away is that a lot of clients of ours, they do like to count when somebody types in the URL of their website into Google search or Yahoo search or whatever search engine. They a lot of times like to count this traffic as direct traffic. So that's one possibility for the Google Analytics tracking code that you can customize. But I think that the biggest #1 thing that you can do with the Google Analytics tracking code is creating what are called virtual page views. So if you have a PDF on your website that you want someone to download, that PDF is not necessarily a page like an HTML or an ASP or a Cold Fusion page is. So what you'll need to do, you'll need to install what's known as an on-click event to that PDF so that when somebody clicks on that, you can customize or put in an additional one-line customization that will call one of the functions of the Google Analytics tracking code so that you can count that as a page view. So that way you can see how many people are downloading my PDF or viewing my PDF. And this can work for any kind of file, PDF, Windows Movie, MP3, whatever you may have out there on your website.
And one other case I think that I see a lot is people that may have third-party shopping carts or subdomains and things like that, which also, they need a little more help with those kind of situations.
Right, if tracking page views was 1, subdomains and third-party websites and shopping carts would be 1A, as far as the things that you can do with Google Analytics tracking code.
And we could probably spend a couple hours on that.
I know I can spend a couple hours on it for sure.
We don't have that kind of time today, but want to thank you for spending a little bit of your time with us. Joe, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you again. One more time. Absolutely. You too. Thank you.